Recording, yeah.
Ready?
5:29.
Tell me when, Jeremy. Call to order the city council meeting for Monday, October 8th, 2018. Roll call.
Barnes.
Here.
Gary.
Here.
Austin.
Here.
Mazias.
Here.
McGrath.
Here.
Novacek.
Here.
Oswald.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes for city council meeting October 10th, 2018.
So approval of the September 10, 2018 minutes.
Second.
Any corrections, changes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Approval of monthly expenditures. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of the monthly expenditures.
Second,
Second.
as a roll call vote.
Oswald.
Yes.
Novacek.
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Mazias.
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Now it's time for public comment. If you have a public comment, please come to the microphone and please say your name and your address. You have 3 minutes. Anyone want to speak for public comment?
I'm Scott Posner. I live on 119 North 9th Avenue West here in Washburn. And thank you for letting me speak here, Mayor Abel and council members. And I do want to say, Mayor Abel, I appreciate your social media postings that
Thank you.
keep the local residents, citizens informed, and you bring up some interesting ideas as well. A recent one that caught my attention was, what can we do to get more people to stop here in Washburn, and especially on their way to Applefest? And I was thinking about that. Some ideas got brought up about sprucing up the town, making it look more attractive to people. And on September 15th, I was walking my dog down at Thompson's West End Park, and I was pleased to see that the park had a lot of people there. It was almost full. So a lot of people are stopping even that late in the season. There was a grandmother with 2 little girls playing in the playground there. Enjoyable place. And then the blasting started. Somebody started shooting, not from where I would expect, but coming from right next to the campers, shooting geese in the parking area, right next to the playground, where the little girls were playing. One of the girls screamed. The grandmother yelled at the guy. Some people looked out of their campers, others went in. One woman came out and asked me if that was legal, and said it was her first time camping, and she never thought such a thing would happen here. And I knew that there was goose shooting was authorized, but I couldn't believe it could be like that. So I called the police and figured it must have been somebody else. It couldn't have been an agent of the city of Washburn shooting from next to occupied campers at geese right near the playground with little girls playing in it. But sure enough, the officer came out there and insisted that this is what the city council approved, and this is exactly what they had intended and how they intended it to be done. And I'm not opposed to shooting geese. I've shot many myself. As a hunter, I am sensitive to things that put hunting in a bad light, and this does. And I considered a few options. Maybe you did authorize it to be done in that way, and you thought that that was okay. to be shooting, have somebody shooting right next to kids playing and next to campers who had no idea what was going on. If so, I think that's shameful. I think it puts hunting in a bad light, and it puts the city of Washburn in a bad light. One woman, I know she's not coming back. She was too scared to come out of her camper until I came walking by there and sent her kids to the campground host to tell them what's going on. I don't think that grandmother's bringing her kids there to play again. We're not putting Washburn in a good light by doing it in that way. Maybe you didn't approve it to be done. If so, I think you need to find somebody else to do the job that has better judgment. And the officer who insisted it was intended to be done that way should also be corrected and found out on. Or a third option I thought was maybe you had just authorized it to be done without really thinking of what could go wrong and left it up to the shooter's discretion. I would say then perhaps some more thought and time should be put into matters like that, thinking through the consequences. And again, look for someone who has some better judgment, because that person represents the city of Washburn, and that does not put the city of Washburn in a good light. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to speak about? Please step forward. State your name and your address, please.
Diane Posner, 119 North 9th Avenue West in Washburn. I'm wearing my library board hat today. I'm just taking my 3 minutes to update the council on recent library activities. We just had called a special board meeting to talk about the implementation of an ADA unloading ramp constructed on the 3rd Street side of the library, which would enable a vehicle like the BART bus or the Blue Goose to drop people off all the way up to where the current sidewalk curves. Unfortunately, we didn't have a quorum, so we're going to try to get together again later in the week and discuss that issue. Dale did speak to Cliff Harness, who is the individual who lives next door to the library, and provided information for him and has certainly kept his door open for further questions from Cliff. Our friends had a meeting on October 1st with 15 in attendance, and we discussed plans for a fundraising campaign towards raising funds for our tuck pointing. Our kickoff will be in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce with a chili feed for the Zombie Days celebration at the Harborview Event Center. Just for information, I am the new president of the Friends. So if you have any questions about the Friends, or if you hear anything, please ask me first, and I'll try to provide information. Or if you hear anybody who would like to be a friend, please direct them to the library or to me. I also wanted to thank the Public Works Department and Larry for providing a fire pit for our ghost story night on Friday. It's apparently a very heavy fire pit, and it was too cold to have a fire outside, but I really appreciated him taking the initiative to do that for us. And I would like to thank you for all of you for your service.
Diane, what's the date for your chili feed?
That will be October 27th, and I believe we're going to start serving chili at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
So,
Anyone else like to make any public comments? Last chance? Okay. Next on to mayoral proclamations. First, we still have opening for the committee of the Lake Superior Byway, and we have an opening for the BART board. We have not received any applications for that, so if you have an interest, please contact the city. And next, I'd like to make a proclamation in regards to Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas a growing number of communities across the United States of America have recognized the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day, reimagining Columbus Day as an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous diversity and resiliency. And whereas the city of Washburn understands the historic importance of the Indigenous populations that inhabited this region and the rest of the United States of America prior to European contact. And whereas the city of Washburn further understands that the observance of Columbus Day is detrimental to the cultural sustainability of Indigenous peoples and the relationships that the city maintains with these. And whereas overwhelming support of a new recognition for Indigenous Peoples Day has been noted from our residents, now therefore I, Richard Abel, Mayor of Washburn, do hereby proclaim Monday, October 8th, 2018 to be Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Washburn. And I strongly encourage the city of Washburn residents to continue to promote racial equity and recognition for Indigenous cultures through education, engagement, and community outreach, reaffirming the commitment to demonstrate support and appreciation for Indigenous peoples. Next, I'd like to, yes.
Is there any chance that you would appoint someone to the park board? It'd be really nice to have a representative from the city of Washburn. Does anybody on this board would be willing to do it, or would you appoint someone to it? Be great to have representation from the city.
I would like to appoint someone, but no one has come forward. If someone would come forward, I would gladly appoint them. So please contact me.
I would. I'm already on. Otherwise, I'd be very excited to be a part of it.
Tell us how exciting it is.
It's a great board. It's a really great way to dip your toes into a more regional board instead of just the city of Washburn. So you get a very good feel of what's going on in Ashland, Price, and Bayfield County. It's public transportation. We're looking at how we're going to expand it and how it can help our citizens. So it'd be really nice to have some representation from the city there, other than me.
Let's hope someone comes forward. Next, I'd like to comment on the great efforts people have made on citywide cleanup. Since the last meeting, I think it's pretty obvious that a lot of things have happened in the city. A lot of people have taken a lot of pride and done a lot of hard work. And I'd especially like to thank the Washburn Motel and Events Center, Nick Anderson and Jeff Milberg, for their very generous contribution of mums, which you see all over on Bayfield Street. It was very kind of them to contribute that way. And next, I'd like to congratulate our next door neighbor, City Bayfield, for another successful Apple Fest, with special thanks for our own Jeremy Oswald for all his very hard work to make that happen. It brings quite the thousands and thousands of people to the area, and it's much appreciated. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to repeat something I say often. We need firefighters and EMTs. If you know anyone who would like to become a firefighter, EMT, we need more firefighters and EMTs. And lastly, I'd like to note the passing of Patty Skorzakowski. She was a long-term Washburn resident. She was an early, maybe one of the first members of the Harbor Commission, and she was on the Harbor Commission when the marina was founded. And there was a lot of hard work. I talked to her about that. And her husband, Jeff, was our postmaster for many, many years. So our sympathies go out to their family. Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation by Bayfield Peninsula Energy Alternatives on the Xcel Energy Second Circuit Transmission Line, Roy Setcast. Roy has passed out a few things for the council. Roy, please step up and speak into the microphone.
Or the non-microphone.
Oh, it's the non-microphone. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'll just try and speak up.
Speak loudly, Roy.
Okay. I was here, 3-4 months ago, I think, and gave the council just sort of an informational presentation via the public comment section on this project. And I just wanted to bring you up to date once again, because 2 weeks ago tonight, Excel did an open house in the community down at the event center. It wasn't very well publicized. The Daily Press put out a notice of it at noon of the day of the event. So not that many people were aware of it through the press. And Excel promoted it to people who live on the power line and proposed power line stuff, but other people didn't necessarily know this. So what I wanted to do is bring you up to speed. I put this 4-page package together for you, and it's kind of a text explanation, which I'm gonna somewhat go over the same points, but please read it at your leisure. The front page is a map that Excel's provided, and it shows the 2 routes of what they're considering building. To refresh your memories on this, they want a second line providing power in the community that kind of provides some redundancy. And currently there's 1 line map. That's where the power comes into the city of Washburn and into Bayfield and Madeline Island. And there's a cable across under the lake to La Pointe from Bayfield that provides Madeline Island. And there's also lines that go all the way around to Iron River, and the original concept was you could feed power into the area from either direction, but the lines that go to Iron River aren't sufficient to feed power to all of this side of the peninsula. So they want a sort of a new second source of power into the peninsula. And we've been working on this since about this time last year, last August, they came to the community. And at that time they said, we're ready to go on this. We're gonna build a new line of what is the red line on the map. And we're gonna have 2 separate lines that feed both Washburn and Bayfield substations. And there were a fair number of people in the community at that time who said, really, do we really need a whole new transmission corridor through the community? And that was the genesis of what we later started calling ourselves Bayfield Peninsula Energy Alternatives. We were just trying to understand this project, figure out if it was really needed, if there were any other alternatives, because it seemed like putting a whole new transmission corridor through the community really wasn't our first choice of how to solve this problem. So to be real succinct on what's going on, after people started questioning Excel, they kind of took a step back, slowed down their process, and engaged with the community on this. And now they have a different proposal that they laid out 2 weeks ago. And the different proposal is they want to go to the Public Service Commission with 2 ways to accomplish this. They want to let the Public Service Commission decide. Typically, they go to the Public Service Commission if they have options and say, this is what we'd like to do. Here's another way to do it, but this is our preferred one. In this case, curiously, they aren't willing to say that they advocate for one or the other. They just say that both of these. And our group has the people that have gotten active on this topic have looked at this. We put together a tool to try and evaluate in some objective fashion how to compare 2 different routes. The townships, there's 5 townships that this goes through. All of those townships endorse the use of this kind of comparison tool that we put together, and basically based on Excel's own documents about how they make decisions. But then we kind of added community concerns, like how many houses are going to be impacted by a new line, how many people are going to have a new right-of-way put through their front yard. And Excel has the ability to condemn right-of-way if you don't voluntarily offer it to them. So they now have 2 proposals. One is to build essentially what was their original idea to go up this red line and put a second line up to Bayfield, and there would be a feeder line into Washburn that you can see as a red line coming down County C. It runs on roads, it runs through county forest, and it's both Bayfield and Washburn. Their second thing that kind of developed as a result of community pushback on that first idea is they proposed to run both of their lines on a single set of poles right down their existing right of way. So there would be no new right of way through the community. It would all be on the existing right of way. Interestingly, their strategy is that they want to put up, to accomplish that second one, is they want to put up a second, or they want to take down the existing line. And to do that, they're going to put they're proposing to put a temporary line where the blue dotted line goes up. And that would allow them to take the existing line out of service, take down the existing line, and put up a new double circuit line that would give them their 2 circuits going to Bayfield, and they'd go on a single set of poles. And then they'd go back after 4 to 6 months of this temporary line serving Bayfield during Washburn and Bayfield. During the summer season, they would take that line down. And the idea there is that that temporary line could be, the poles could be put in ditches. They wouldn't have to clear a right of way the way they would typically for a new permanent right of way. They wouldn't be getting easements. They just get permission from the towns and ditches during the winter season. So by the time snow plowing comes along, this line would be done and gone. They'd have the new line with 2 separate circuits going to Bayfield. It would probably be done over 2 seasons. One coming to Washburn and the other going from Washburn to Bayfield. That's their proposal. And they're talking about going to the Public Service Commission with this by the end of the year. The interesting thing is they're not saying they favor one thing over the other. And they want the public service. They're gonna give pros and cons to both of them. The second page is kind of their document about what they see as pros and cons on this. And one thing I want to point out is they've compared the costs of the 2 lines. And they say that to do this double circuited line on the existing right of way with a bypass line would be $7 million more. That's roughly like 32 million versus 25 million. So just to put it in context, we've asked for sort of breakouts on the costs, and they haven't given it to us, and they say they aren't willing to give it to us till they file with the Public Service Commission, which is a little disappointing. But we want to just point out that that comparison isn't strictly, they aren't comparable figures. One of the options rebuilds the existing line entirely. The other option, they've got a brand new line and they've got the existing line, which they've already said is kind of on its last legs or late in its lifespan. And so to our calculation, and we're encouraging them to figure it into their calculations, there's some extra value in rebuilding both circuits instead of having one new circuit. So the bottom line on this at this point is our group is kind of going around to the townships with the idea of getting all the townships to look at this and ideally agree with us that what Excel is called the east option, the existing right of way down the blue line where there wouldn't be a transmission line through the community would be preferable. And we're hoping to get the community in sort of a unified voice this. So that if Excel isn't gonna advocate for one or the other, we feel like it's important for the community to advocate for what we want. And I know you guys haven't really been approached to be kept in the loop on this, but this is an attempt to kind of make up a little bit of ground and bring you into the loop, because the city of Washburn is one of the two primary loads that this system serves. It doesn't, the lines aren't in the city very much, but I think your voice would be one that we'd like to add to the sort of community voice on this topic. So tonight it's informational, and we're just kind of trying to figure out our strategy as to how to put together a community voice on this. But going to townships first, and then we'll probably go to the county and ask if the county would be willing to say that there's support for the east alternative. And it's critical with the county in that the county has to grant Excel right away for the new line, if there's gonna be a new line. They go right through county forest for a big stretch, and there is no easement there at this point, and they can't condemn county easement. So the county has actually the leverage, if they choose to exert it, to say, yeah, we just want this down the existing right of way. And we might get to that point, or we might just get them saying we favor that, or we'll probably be back to you guys in another month or so here and action thing, like a letter, if you so approve. And questions, I don't want to just blabber at you if you've got. Interest.
So at the next meeting, you're hoping the city council will approve a resolution recommending, in your hopes, the blue line.
Yeah, I mean, a resolution, or I'm not quite sure what the format would be. You could probably tell me how that would be best.
It would be a resolution.
Or a letter to the
Letter.
county. It's really gonna be to the Public Service Commission at this point that we wanna have a community voice.
Okay.
So.
And it is just exactly where does it come into the city, tip of Highway C?
Yeah, it comes down to the substation up there, and there really wouldn't be any new construction beyond the substation.
Okay.
But it is the power that serves the whole city.
Okay. Yes, please, Linda.
So this dotted blue line here,
Yep.
that's the temporary.
That is the
option-
bypass.
bypass
What they're
option
calling
means
the
the temp-
bypass.
So that's the temporary.
Yep.
Did Excel speak at all to if they're using a temporary bypass line, possible interruptions in service?
They're saying that would be the way to do this construction without interruptions in
Okay.
service. I mean, I'm sure there could be a momentary flicker as they switch from one line to the other or something like that. But they weren't talking about an outage. They're trying to avoid that.
Right.
And one of, just to speak to some of their logic in here, they like the idea of having the two lines separate so that if one set of poles or one pole goes down on one line, both lines don't go at the same time. What we see in the figures they've provided us is that in the last 10 years, there's never been an outage that this kind of a configuration would have prevented. Or that a double circuited thing going up the existing right of way would have been any worse than a single circuited one. The outages in the community have all been from power sources outside the community. There've been a ton of outages over in the Iron River area that have been due to lines and poles, but nothing over on this side. So it's it's an issue, but our perspective is it doesn't seem like it would really make that much difference from what our experience has been locally.
Any other questions for Roy?
And the difference would be the reduction in the impact.
That's the advantage to putting it on the existing right of way. The third page has this little table on it that kind of is our attempt to use that tool we generated and look at the different impacts. And particularly the number of houses that it's in proximity to, like the acreage and just a whole cleared right away going through the community just doesn't seem like it's something that we feel is the best solution for this issue. That's, yeah,
Thank you, Roy.
guys. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
kind of laying it all out there for us. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
There's
Just,
Jeremy?
Roy, didn't you, I saw you at that meeting, and didn't you say that XL was asking the PSC if they do have a hearing about it, a public hearing to have it up here, which was something kind of out of the ordinary for XL to do, to kind of go out of the way to help folks up here?
I'm not sure that that was an Excel request, but that was a PS. Excel asked for a hearing on this thing, which it's not a big enough project that it automatically would require a hearing. But they said there's enough public interest that they want a hearing on this. And then the Public Service Commission has told Excel that they will hold the hearing in the community rather than as, which is fabulous, I think. The way a lot of things go. So sometime next year, presumably that hearing will occur. It's about a 9-month process with the PSC is what Excel says, and they're planning to file by the end of the year. So sometime next year, we can weigh in with the Public Service Commission on this, or with their staff face to face. The commission itself would probably be here, but staff would be here.
Just that, my comment would be that I was just very impressed about XL. They seem to have gone out of their way to listen to what the public has said. I think we're used to people just, when something like this comes our way, it's just like, here it is, and it gets shoved down our throat. But I've been very impressed with the way that XL has listened to the group that Roy represents and been willing to work with them.
I agree. I mean, it's hard to say yet how much of this is sort of good PR and how much of it is substance until we kind of see their posture in front of the Public Service Commission. But they have certainly taken a huge step back from their initial proposal and made it much more to the liking of our group anyway, one of their options. Wish they would say, yeah, the community wants this, so we're going to prefer this blue line option. And they steadfastly refuse to do that, but so it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have discussion and action on fire department request to apply for FEMA grant to replace self-contained breathing apparatus units. And I see Mr. Krause here. Are you representing the fire department tonight, Mr.? Okay, will you please come forward if there's any questions for you? So you have the information in your packet. It's as per policy, the grant application is requiring more than a $5,000 commitment from the city, and it needs to be approved in advance of the application by city council. What is your pleasure? We need a motion to approve, if you'd so want to.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
Any discussion?
I guess I'm just always trying to educate myself on some things in your memo. And so this, I don't understand the statement, this equipment would be eligible expense for the 2% dues program for which the city receives funding, must make up blah, blah, blah. So can you just for my knowledge, again, what is the 2% dues program?
The 2% dues program is everyone who pays property insurance. A portion of that fee gets put into this program, which is intended to help fire departments and so forth to mitigate risks. And so that is a program that there are certain eligible expenses to help fire prevention, and equipment is one of those eligible expenses.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes
Thanks
unanimously.
for writing the grant. Good luck.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Next, we're having discussion and action on the Plan Commission recommendation to approve ordinance 18-006, amending the city's zoning code to provide more definite standard to several zoning provisions. Jeremy, would you like to comment? You're the Plan Commission representative to the council.
Only that we've had, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 very great planning commission, I don't know if great's the word. We had some healthy discussions at these planning commission meetings, and after kind of being maybe somewhat far apart, I thought it was at their last meeting we really came together and really agreed and was able to. So, and I'm a little worn out from Applefest, but
sure.
if I can help answer any questions about it, I will try.
Is there a motion to approve?
I would so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments?
I guess my only comment is on the main one that was drafty. It's just a terminology thing, and I guess everybody elevation faces Bayfield Street, the roof line. I mean, if everybody's cool with that and understands it, that's fine. To me, sitting here, I don't know what that means.
Neither did many of the Plan Commission members.
Okay. And if
So that we were educated. The rake is the slope of the roof line as seen from as observed from the street. So if you imagine how your roof line comes down. So what we're trying to avoid is if the front of the building is not on Bayfield Street and the roof is sloping backwards, you do not see that downward slope. There would be a parapet wall or something, so it would look straight across and not have the downward slope. So I don't know if I described that well enough.
Okay,
I'm not
I
a
mean,
contractor.
it kind of goes into must be hidden behind the facade facing Bayfield. I mean, it's just, yeah, and it's fine as long as we're all good with having something that needs to be.
That is the correct terminology
Correct
as told
terminology,
to
I'm
us
good with
by
it. People
contractors.
who know, but thank you for educating me on that. And this was a unanimous decision at the
Yes, it was.
planning commission.
It was.
Okay.
Yes, Aaron, please.
Well, I just had a question about the, when it talked about the size of a building would require sort of a design that makes it look like it's 2 buildings. I'm trying
Multiple
to
buildings.
paraphrase, yeah, multiple buildings. Was there discussion on how that might disadvantage or discourage, either cost or, design other businesses that want to come in? Because as a non-contractor, I don't know how expensive that might be, or that might look discouraging to businesses coming in.
That was, we didn't think it would be that burdensome in the ways you could do it,
Okay.
as I recommend. Is that how you recall, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, so it would cost more to do this, but that's what we think, the reason we decided to do that was that was the aesthetic we thought was appropriate for our community.
And to avoid a large block of one solid wall
Right.
on the street, which we thought would be very unattractive. So you could do various design elements. It could potentially be very costly or not very costly, depending on what you wanted to do.
Yeah. That's, it depends on the thing, of course, but that was just kind of, are we talking like a 50% increase of cost, for instance,
No.
would take, so that's what I was kind of curious about. Just if we were looking at if there are economical ways of making it happen under the zoning code, then.
This is something discussed quite a lot. And I see Mr. Anderson in the audience who was there and a member. Do you have any comments about that to correct what we're saying here? Nope. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Well, just one more on the number 3. It's like, on any building on Bayfield Street, the front entrance of the building shall be encouraged to face Bayfield Street. So I'm sure there was a lot of discussion on that language of shall and like how it gets determined that we've tried hard enough to make, to like so was, I guess I just want to know a little bit more about in terms of like, so when that does not occur, like what's the parameters in which that does not occur? Is that like a decision by the planning commission because of the size of the building and all this kind of stuff just takes into account? So we're pretty comfortable with that.
That was a contentious item.
Okay, I'm sure it was. Sorry that I couldn't go to that planning commission meeting, but I'm just kind of just trying to get a feel for,
So,
this we all, when it comes back to here.
so obviously it would mainly be, the structures that are on corner lots. Because that would be the only opportunity to do that. So for example, the building across the street or, let's see, Patsy's has a side entrance, something like that. But that's not
Oh,
their,
okay.
whether it's a primary or not, it's hard to tell on that structure.
Right.
Or
right.
on the building across the street, it's hard to tell which is the primary structure, entrance. But it was encouraged to be, but if it's not, if you can't build your building so that that can be the front, these other elements come into play, which is
Okay.
why we had that breaking up of
Breaking
that
up of the-
wall.
Yep.
So it doesn't look like it's just an ugly side of a building. So Aaron, I'm so sorry, are you finished, Jen?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, just to jump on that question. So when it says, well, what if you can, but you prefer it, would the planning commission be able to deny a plan based upon the location of their entrance? Or is it just, we'd really like this to happen, yet, you're just gonna have to follow the architectural design of the outside, like, the Bayfield Street leaning. You know what I mean? Do we have does that make sense?
I guess I'll leave that up to our legal counsel.
Plan commission could not deny it based on that.
Okay.
But I think that a lot to build and looking to build do take the consideration and the encouragement of the
Okay.
zoning administrator into account when they're building.
Okay.
But so long as it meets the other sections and it does meet it, I think that the applicant would have to show that they actually tried.
Okay.
That's a question there, but in short, no, that's not grounds to deny it in and of itself.
That's, okay.
Jeremy?
But I will say, if it's the pleasure of the council, you are free to change our wording.
That is
That's why we're
exactly
looking
true.
at it and that's why we're asking questions, right? Yeah.
So, any other things you'd like to add, subtract, change, or question? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks to the planning commission for all their hard work on that.
Next, discussion and action on park committee recommendations for improvement to athletic field / creation of sandlot. And Jen Mazias, the representative to that committee, will lead us through this.
Yes, so we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. And I think the council just wanted a little bit more information on how much those lots, the first 2 baseball fields were utilized and putting in that sand lot. There's also some questions, Dan, correct, on, the solar that we had discussed going in. But we have a photo that shows the 2 lots in the photo, and then the green new sand lot. There is, I believe, a typo of 110,000 in the second paragraph, where I think we just meant 10,000.
No, that the 110 is if we were to construct a full brand new.
Oh, a full
field.
brand new
Yeah,
field
yeah, yeah.
with the fences
That-
and
yeah,
everything.
everything.
So right now, I think the Parks and Rec Committee was in favor of, going forward with the construction of the sand lot within the budget. And with the possibility of later wanting to fence it in, utilizing some of the materials they had stockpiled. So we took a look at it and I think everyone was in favor of it. So questions?
If I could just comment, that Dan was recommending the,
Yeah. Sorry.
as an additional.
Yep, and I scribbled a little yes on that for the additional $570 to level out the entire field to get more space in the future, so you wouldn't have to come back. So,
Yes.
Jen, you talked to people who are involved with using the fields.
Yep.
Both at the high school level and at Little League and T-ball.
yeah, and so you see in here that there's some
I saw the schedule.
schedule and
Yeah.
stuff. Yep, we have some representation on our Parks and Rec Committee that actually are down there quite a bit and do a lot of this stuff.
All
So, yeah, I
And
feel
then-
like we had good representation of that.
I
And
thought that you had. Thank
the other
you.
gentleman,
David,
David, that was,
high school baseball coach.
yep,
Yep.
So, yeah.
He's in favor of this.
he's in favor. So,
as well.
yeah,
That was just. my
Yep.
question. I knew that you had the Little League and T-ball covered, but I was
yep.
wanting to know if high school was also talked to.
Yep.
They have it. Great.
And when you're talking about leveling out the field, you mean this in the green outline here?
Yes,
That's
so
what you're talking
the,
about.
yeah, since we're out there for the minimal cost, we could kind of, not that that entire area would be needed for the baseball, but it
Right.
would just give us something else in the future if we so wanted to.
There was a mention of placing solar panels
Correct.
that they could coexist.
I think even where they show the potential solar panels now, based on this being the T-ball type field, they would coexist. Now, if we level off the entire area, I do believe that where they show the solar panels here, the reason they're not further down, which would be in this green area, is because it drops
Drops
off.
off.
It just wouldn't be feasible unless it was level. If it's level, I do believe they could be shifted over in that direction.
Okay.
And if it comes to a point where we think there is an issue, I don't think there's a large expense to have like a shielding up for that.
Yeah.
But again, this is T-ball.
Right.
don't think it's
So
gonna-
It's not gonna be some
We
major,
talked about how,
major hitters.
right, we talked about how
Slugger.
if it's
Yeah.
a concern, I'm sure there's something we could
Yeah.
put up that would save any balls from going into our solar
Spent
panels.
some time with T-ball. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, not too violent. One other question I have here is, that there's, let's see. Okay. You mentioned using in your memo, oh, this one's from September 12th. The September 12th memo talks about using the money from the sale of recent, the
September-
recent sales of city properties and leftover park capital outlay funds. And in the minutes from the park committee, they talked about fundraising. So which option?
They
Is
did
it-
mention fundraising. I think it was kind of if we were over
Yeah,
those costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I do believe with the sale of the properties at the 10,000, with what we're proposing, I do think we make that. And if we want to go above and beyond, we could do fundraising. But I think at this point, we do have, those funds would cover this project.
Okay.
yeah, I think the mention of fundraising was that it's an organization that does have the capacity to do some fundraising. So like
Right.
later on with fencing or different things that they would be,
Okay,
you know.
but not initially.
And I think
but
we
I don't
actually
think
have,
initially, Yeah,
if we were able to salvage the fencing from the old field, we salvaged the topsoil from the old field, and we salvaged the infield sand from the old field. We would have enough to create a much larger field if we want to with the fencing. In fact, we found more fencing out there. So that is a large expense that I don't believe we would have to expend if we decided to do the full fencing.
Any other questions?
I just had a question about the placement of the sand. I don't even know if you've gotten that far into the design of it, but just the idea of, I love the idea of leveling the whole space is more, just maybe it's a larger sport complex. So whatever the design is, it has that idea in mind where, there might be multiple activities, possible in that space.
Yep. And I think to make that as conducive as possible, the sand lot would be the opposite of the other fields there. So the two are facing this way. The sand lot would be facing the other way. So the two backstops would be back to back.
Okay.
That would, I think, provide us the most usable space. If we do it the other way, you'd be turning it, you would lose any extra. So that would be the idea, is to have it opposing the other.
Are we ready to take a vote on this? Is there a motion to approve the park committee recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. The next is discussion on action on park committee recommendation to approve plan to repair West End landing area and apply for recreational boating fund. That'll be resolution number 18-013. And Jen, I would like to take this up again.
Yeah, so at our same meeting, we went again down and had some discussion quite a bit on, last time we went down and looked at the dock, and you can see the plans from the Smith Group in your packet. So I think Dan was, if you read his multiple times in there, that this is an expensive fix. So docks are they're expensive, right? And so I think basically we talked a little bit about if there was any other options or some other different configurations in here, but this kind of gives some flexibility, like, you maybe don't do number 3 with the kiosk information and things like that. But if you've gone down there and looked at the docks recently, we're in pretty dire straits for those docks and also for that bulkhead area. So I think going for a grant was something that everyone was definitely in agreement of. And then I think this is a good one to go for. And if you notice, the other possible sources of grant dollars, coastal management, leftover dollars from the coal dock, but it is expensive. And then the match is something that we might not be able to totally cover out of the recreation fund. So there's definitely some things to think about with this, but it's taking the step of trying to fix one of our major dock areas.
And we won't know unless we really go for that grant.
No, unless we go for it.
Yes,
And who will do the grant? Is
I
that
will.
something Dan
Yep.
is going to do? I think
so to approve the trying for the
Trying
grant.
for the grant.
That's what we're looking at tonight.
I would so move approval of resolution 018-013 to apply for a grant to repair Thompson's West End boat ramp area.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I just
Linda?
have a question. It says in your memo, Dan, that we plan on using the park designated fund as our matching dollars to the grant. However, that may not get us all the way. Approximately what is in the parks designated fund? Because it looks like the city would need about 127,000.
Roughly, there's somewhere between 100 and 120.
Okay.
That does get somewhat replenished each year, about 20 to 30, I think, each year from the campgrounds. I don't know if we want to expend
No,
Yeah, I don't know if
all
we
of
wanna
that, and we do have a
deplete it
few
all.
projects
No.
here. So I
that's,
think if we lucky enough to get the 80% grant, we could use funding from the designated fund, and then we may have to
like more
look
grants.
for, and then there is the other grants we could try to
Mhm.
match our match.
Right,
So
okay.
there's more work to be done.
Yes.
Yes, Jeremy.
Chunk of change.
Was the West End Park Master Plan consulted for this? With this, does it match up with what that plan proposed?
Excellent question. I don't think we
Well-
specifically had that conversation.
I don't know if this specific area, further down that bulkhead there, I believe the plan shows a big boardwalk and some things. We're not really getting into that area. I don't think the plan says a whole lot about just this. It does show the dock here. It may not show this exact configuration. I think this is the simplest, cheapest configuration for it, but I wouldn't say it goes against that plan.
Because the boat landing and the dock did not change with the West End Park plan. That didn't like go
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
else.
still
It was in
there.
the same
It's-
location.
And this is something I've heard from many people they want to see happen. And so I don't recall, that's a good question, but I don't recall it addressing this specific spot.
No, I don't believe so. It was
So
more
this
with
would be
the
a good
hill and.
This would be a very good addition, I feel. Yes, John?
Well, I agree. I know that we had spent a lot of time and money on that, and
Right.
it's been a while since I've looked at it. I don't remember anything that, it doesn't appear to me that it goes against it.
Be in conflict with
Yeah,
it, but yeah.
right.
No.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And next is the discussion and action on approved placement of adult outdoor exercise equipment. And Jen, again,
So,
We do have Pete from the county here.
okay,
we do have folks from the county
Yeah,
here?
Pete
Oh, good.
Morissette is here from the county if anyone would like to open the floor and
Jen, please.
Great. So we worked with Pete and the parks, the committee, we, really, so if you remember, the council approved that outdoor equipment. And at the time, the thought was, right, we're gonna kind of maybe put it on the walk. Then after further discussion, it was determined that it might not work so great for maintenance and other reasons, to kind of place a piece throughout the walking trail. So basically then we got to the point of, okay, well, if you're gonna congregate it together, where are some places that are the best place to put this? So we looked at several locations, thoughts of, and this is where we did look into the park plan a little bit in terms of where the parking is for the Book Across the Bay, the field above, where the sailing dock and everything is there. We looked at that, like, oh, that's kind of a nice spot. It's up with a view of the lake. But then we also know that that spot was looked at for a lot of different things in the West End plan. We also tried to look at little finger landings that went down into the walking trail. And we looked at even the baseball area too. So, so after looking at the different locations, feel like the best spot that we thought in terms of proximity, to the campgrounds for people to use it, view of the lake next to the walking trail, kind of all the different, points in which the county thought that it was a good idea to apply for this equipment. Taking into account for all of that, the site located that we thought was best case scenario is at the entrance of the walking trail where we approved the native plant garden, that kind of area over in there. And you'll see on your packet, there's a map of that area. The one piece is when we walked down there, we realized it would be really nice to kind of have a better game plan for the entire area. So it didn't look so like, oh, we plopped this here. We plopped this here. Oh, we got the sailing equipment here. We got a shed here. So we needed a little bit more time, frankly, to determine. So we don't have a recommendation tonight for an overall plan for that whole area. But just that somewhere in that location is the best case scenario. And then a little bit more time so we can work with the sailing club. We can, consult the West End plan, kind of come up with a better picture, long-term vision of what that area would look like.
Mhm.
And so we talked about how timing is always of the essence. So Dan reminded me of what we weren't sure about
Nice.
coming back to the
Yeah,
council.
well, I guess really if council is on board with that general location, I think we have more time. I was concerned if we weren't sure on that location at all, that the county would have to, eventually go on to somebody else and give them time to do that. But if we're good with that location and it's just the exact spot in that location, I think Pete agrees that we have time to discuss that again. So.
Yes, Mary?
The only feedback I had ever gotten was, again, not along the walking trail, but was to have it more by the playground equipment.
We did, okay, so that was another spot we looked at. We did look over by the playground equipment. We looked at basically where we have a very wet volleyball site. And so the fact of, we weren't so sure about putting equipment in an already wet area and corrosion and how we'd have to lift it and what it'd look like there. And so, and that kind of close to the lake too, it's not protected at all sometimes. So we did look at that. We could look again, but yeah, no, there was discussion, but that area is pretty darn wet.
And if you went down to that area, there are 4 stakes in the ground. It is a pretty small footprint.
It is.
Smaller than you might think. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. I'd say it's probably on par or maybe smaller than the garden itself.
Yep, I would say so.
So I don't believe it would be intrusive there. We did look at the beach, but it's probably gonna be on a cement slab. So you think sand and water, and I just worry that it would get underneath that and erode it. But I think that general location, I think we could find a good place for it and have it there.
So as I understand it, just so I'm clear, the committee's request is that the committee would work with the staff for the exact placement within that area, within consideration of the sailing club and wherever else, the garden, all those other users.
Yeah, and I think we have it. It is staked down there, and maybe that location is just fine. But when we went down there, we thought, oh, we need to add this to our agenda again, and we need to meet with some of the partners down there, the sailing club, and start to, because you don't want it to be like, oh, like I said, we plopped here. We're gonna plop something else here. I think we just need a little bit more cohesive plan for that entranceway. And I think that can be easily achieved, but I think it warrants a little bit more discussion, which we didn't have the people there to do that.
Yes, Jeremy?
Would there be any reason you couldn't do that and then bring another recommendation to us?
I think we could, but like Dan said, I think it depends on, and maybe Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about timing for your, because we talked a little bit about starting to pour some slab and we just weren't sure about.
I think the biggest thing is, I think we could bring it back, as long as we're kind of with the understanding that we're bringing it back, but we're all in agreement that that location in general is a go. I think that's fine, because then we give them a guarantee that, yes, we are going to have it and it's going to be there. We're just deciding exactly where in that proximity it goes. So in that factor, yes, I think we could bring it back with.
I personally don't see a real need to bring it back because we know exactly the area it's going to be in within a few feet, I guess. And the exact placement of each individual equipment is that really something the city council has to decide? I mean, if you really want to decide that, you can.
Well, and
But if it's 3 feet this way or 3 feet that way, is that really that important? It's your
and
choice.
obviously, if we're talking about overall, I do think that if this body wants to see if we're meeting with, I think where you're getting, if we're meeting with the sailing club and we're kind of coming up with an overall comprehensive vision for that little area, if you're interested in seeing what the group comes up with and some different options for that, I mean, we certainly can do that, because that's what the group will do, right? They'll talk about maybe we want to put it up the hill a little bit because in the future you might want to have this or this. Basically what we came down to is the sailing club, meeting with them a little bit because their stuff is kind of maybe can just move to a different location there so it doesn't look like it's all just thrown together at the entranceway to our walking trail. So I think it's going to be more of organization of stuff, Jeremy, than anything big, but I guess it's up to this body on how much you want to get into the details with it. So.
Do I hear a motion, what you'd like to do?
Well, again, you'd refer to the plan. You'd have the time then to refer to the plan and see what was sort of pegged for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think we just weren't comfortable going, yep, let's just stick it in that flagged area. We wanted to think about aesthetics a little bit more, So
I like that site.
I think that's a good site area. I think what I would appreciate is just an update with what's happening now, so that if people ask us, we're aware of what the process is and who was consulted and so on.
So
Any change,
information. you heard-
Information
Okay.
so that
But not a decision
when there's
point.
questions about changes, we understand why changes were made.
Good. That's good.
So,
Yes.
so, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky here. The reason that I did bring it up though is that I do appreciate all the work that the park committee is doing. Other than yourself, you're the only one that's an elected representative there. So should the public not be happy with what happens there, I guess that's why I was thinking of it coming through us again. And maybe I'm overdoing it. Maybe this is micromanagement, but I guess I just like that maybe it protects your committee a little bit and
Sure. I'm game for anything. I think that, I'm not gonna lie that it's not a place that's loved, right? And so, and that's why we weren't like, because right now it's kind of drawn, this is like the trail.
Yeah,
right?
don't be fooled by the big outline. That is not the size of this.
Yeah.
It's just
No.
a general
So-
area.
Yeah, so there's like a little square over here, and we were like, well, but maybe it might be nice over here, but maybe, so we weren't willing to like nail it down, right? And so, yeah, if you want us to get together next month and nail it down and meet with the sailing club and talk about some different things, we can bring it back.
Parks Committee's meetings are open to the public, and
Yep.
people can comment during those meetings if they so wish. So I haven't heard what the city council would like to do. Is there a motion?
Do we make a motion or we
Yes.
just? I'd like to make a motion that the Parks Committee proceed with their planning and provide an update to us whenever they're at the point where they've met with the other groups involved and have made more specific determination of where things would be. I'm not saying, I don't know that the council has to do a final approval, but we could. But mostly I just want you to have the time you need to proceed.
I'm sorry, but that sounds more like discussion
Yeah,
instead of a
that's-
motion.
I know. Motion. So I make a motion that the Parks Committee carry on at that
Hang
site.
on.
With an update? With an update. I
second that
motion.
Well, could we refine that a little bit? Is there a motion to open the floor? Is there, wait, 1 second, please. Is there a motion to open the floor?
I move that we open the floor.
A
And I
second.
second that we open. the
All in
floor.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please, could you speak your name and address, please? Could you speak your name and address, please?
Yes, Kylie Cullen, 118 West Third Street. I think that what the Parks Committee was hoping to get from you guys today is just approval for that polygon being the place where the equipment goes. And we have some, daydreams about what else will go in there. And we'll come back to you with all of those decisions, but could we get a yes on the exercise equipment going there?
I'll make a motion that the exercise equipment be permitted to be placed in that area, that quadrangle.
With the Parks Committee having the authority to
To
place it
designate the
designate
exact
it.
location
Okay.
within the quadrangle.
after consulting the West End Park Plan.
Sure.
Fine.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to close the floor?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I want to thank the Parks Committee. They received from tonight's agenda. They had a lot of things they're doing, and I think they have quite a bit more on coming up. So they're getting a lot done. Thank you.
And thanks to Bayfield County for getting that grant and choosing us to
Thank you, sir.
enjoy their exercise equipment.
We
That's
look
really
forward-
great.
That is really good. Thank you for bringing it to Washburn. I'm sorry, you're correct, Jeremy. Discussion on action on resolution 18.011, authorizing the reissuance of $2,658,510 sewer system mortgage revenue bonds, Series 2005C. As in your agenda, you see this was something that is required by the USDA, which wants to maintain the priority position. And last month you approved the refinancing, and this is a follow-up. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? I'm sure everyone read all this in your packet.
Yes.
Okay, and hearing none.
So we still owe $2,691,000 for a sewer system.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Discussion and action on resolution 18.012, authorizing the reissuance of $3,829,410 water system mortgage revenue bond, Series 2010A. Is similar to what we just discussed. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval of resolution 2018-012.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next discussion and action on recommended updates related to 2019 general fund, capital, and debt service budgets. This is a chance to bring up your changes you'd like. The Personnel and Finance Committee worked on this and is bringing this forward as their recommendation. What would the council like to do? Are there any questions on any of the items?
There's a mention there of contributing up to $15,000 to place sidewalks on Fifth Avenue between 7th and 8th Streets. Those are the sidewalks discussed some couple of years ago by the school.
Yes.
Those are the
Aaron,
sidewalks
do you want to?
needed by the school.
Yes, Aaron brought that up. Aaron, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the idea was that if you are at the corner of the school and at that 8th Street and 5th
Right.
Street intersection, right now the crosswalk, we have this great crossing guard program, which is excellent. But if you look at where they're walking the kids, it's just right into the street.
Yeah, right.
And so, especially in the winter, that becomes a problem. So the idea was, because the full street, there's a lot of cost to extending it any further. The idea was to at least have that block where you could really channel children across the intersection safely, and maintain that sidewalk on that last section on that block. So that was the idea, is to make it considerably safer by just the block between 7th and 8th.
Right. I realize the safety concerns. There was a lot of discussion a while back because people would have to be putting in sidewalks and paying a portion of the cost of the sidewalks. But would this then mean that we can put in the sidewalks and people are not having to?
City Council has passed a resolution saying it's up to City Council to decide who and when
Right,
might be special assessed.
right.
So City Council, that property is all owned by the Housing Authority.
Okay.
And
Okay. There are no private.
myself
Okay,
and.
that's not private. Okay.
Well,
That's
that's
the other discussion.
theoretically, you could special assess the Housing Authority.
Yes, right.
If you so wished. However, we have two representatives on the Housing Authority Board here tonight, myself and Karen, and this is not in the Housing Authority budget.
Right.
So it is hoped that the city might be able to do this, perhaps with assistance from the school district, since the school is the one pushing hard for this.
So last year, so we formed a committee, we met, and then we came up with the discussion of focusing, using this, we changed that one sidewalk configuration and we did the bump outs, right? And so that's not where you're talking. You're talking
No.
going back down to the old place. And I guess my impression was that the school was going to try to funnel kids and move the crossing guards from where you're talking about to where we have a safe crossing and then actually trying to make that be like the main corridor.
Yeah.
Because putting sidewalks on, is it 8th? I need a map sometimes and I can't see that far. 5th and
Fifth
So-
Avenue.
there's not a lot of room there to put sidewalks, right? Because some of the houses are,
Well, no,
Like-
it's not on the part with the houses. It's the part closer to the school by the housing authority.
Just side. of
So
the house.
though there is
Not the whole way.
room, and the feeling that we've heard, or Aaron has expressed, is that yes, the school is trying to funnel children to Fourth Avenue,
right?
but nonetheless, there are a number of children going down Fifth Avenue. And for safety concerns, Aaron brought this up. I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, that's fine. So yeah, the housing sidewalk, at least, again, I'm not a contractor, but when you look at that block, again, it's just that block.
Just that
one
block.
It does look like there's plenty of room for sidewalks. If you look at the condition of the street, I would say that that is just unsafe in general. If you look at where the crosswalk goes to. And absolutely, I think the bump out was great. If you walk down Fourth, I mean, kids are constantly going up and down
Right.
that
So
street.
that first piece
That I
worked.
think was good.
Okay.
The problem is it's as mentioned, it's human nature. A kid's not gonna walk 2 blocks further rather than just going up the street. Do you know what I mean? So like, and the kids on the west side of town aren't going to reroute they're gonna go up the shortest route. The shortest route. So it's to get that last remaining, hopefully, of those students that still cross down that direction, a safe place to cross and onto the sidewalk. Because yes, Fourth is great for the high school, between the high school and the elementary, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of kids going down 4th Street and then over, especially not in the mornings when they're walking from their house. Does that make sense? Like maybe from the school,
Mhm.
you could do it.
Right.
But the problem is actually when the buses are going up the street and, especially in the winter, those, you know what I mean? They're going to walk up Fifth or, cross across on the, I don't think they're going to walk an additional block just to be safe when they cross.
It was discussed in just that area because you're right, the next block down, not only that is the house close to the street, but there's other geologic impediments in the way.
Mhm.
I've walked that, I've driven by it, looked at it every which way. I think this is a good idea. It's up to city council whether you want to do this. There's certainly, the funds could be used in other ways. It's whatever your priority is. Scott, you want to say something?
Just to give you a little more background from what had been discussed last year. Part of the cost estimate that we had and why it was an issue to place sidewalks there is because there are utility pedestals in the way where you would normally place those sidewalks. So that would be part of the cost to deal with that. The only alternative that we have come up with in this discussion, and we don't have an estimate on this yet, is you would have to do a curbed sidewalk next to the street. There would be no terrace in between. So the sidewalk would be right next to the street, and we would have to eliminate parking on the west side, or I'm sorry, the east side of Fifth Avenue for that block.
Okay.
Which there's not a lot of room to park in any event.
I was gonna say, do we have,
You could, I've never
Could.
seen anyone do it.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever seen anybody park there, but.
There's been a couple as well.
Okay.
I was there today.
Okay,
Okay. No, I'm not. I mean, if we feel like this is gonna solve, if putting sidewalks in that one block, you feel like it's gonna solve
Some of the safe.
some of the safety,
I'm not quite sure solve is the word, but it's,
well,
I
help.
think it would
Help,
make it
help.
help. It's a considerably safer.
that's Karen.
Has there been an opportunity to approach the school board regarding their willingness to maybe participate with us?
Well, Aaron
this
was going to
project?
look into that.
I have spoken to the superintendent and certainly the school's open to, working with the city. They have on Washington with the sidewalks that are going in there. So as far as any formal approval, that's something that they would have to bring with the board, which does not meet until tomorrow. So, but it is something that they're discussing, so.
Mary?
Having missed that second finance and personnel, so sorry, I missed that discussion. And with that, is it possible with this 15, does it have to be a specific line item for that? I go back to, as needs, if it's not resolved and if we're not working with the school, or if the school can't help and it's outside of the 15,000, is that money we might be able to use if something else comes up, like the windows at City Hall money?
You can put a provision on that, that by X date, we reconsider allocation of those funds. You could, there's a variety of things we can do. We simply do a budget amendment going in the future once we would have this issue resolved. So there are a number of ways to put a contingency on that. You can say you can't spend it until council has approved a plan. But if we don't approve the plan, the money it'll just go into the capital budget fund for potential reuse for a different project.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I guess I'm just, yep. So it's a total of $25,000 for sidewalks, 10,000 in Bayfield Street, and an additional 15 to do this piece. Am I understanding that correct?
That would likely not cover the.
It's not
the
gonna
entire
cover it.
cost, but if there is any cost sharing available with the school, that might be a possibility. So it's putting that aside for a potential project there.
I feel like in the past, we've asked the school board for cost sharing, and we have
There's not been, not
not
since,
been a specific
not in
ask.
the 9 years I've been on this, 8 years I've been on the school board.
Okay.
It's been conversation.
It's been conversation,
Conversation.
so we
It's
would
never
go to them
brought
with
up.
maybe a specific ask.
Right, we don't have an estimate yet to ask them yet.
We've had a lot of estimates.
Right,
For a
not
lot of
on this
different things.
Particular thing.
This is
Yeah.
a much slimmed down
This
one.
is a slimmed down version.
And
which-
this estimate, I spoke with a contractor today, so I should have that this week.
This seems something that's, could be doable instead of the other ones, which were
That's why we
about
didn't.
$180,000.
That's why we didn't do them. Well, we got them down to like 60 and 70, and then we went for fixing the crosswalk with some bump outs and stuff. So
And yes, Karen,
Since this is the first issue that we've discussed on the budget, is it necessary to have a specific motion regarding this?
if you want to change something,
Well, I guess I would move that we designate or identify $10,000 for sidewalks on Bayfield Street, up to $15,000 for sidewalk on Fifth Avenue, with the understanding that if the $15,000 cannot be utilized because of either the cost or non-participation by a partner, that money then be reallocated into the capital fund.
Scott, do you have any problems with any of that? Dan, did you get any of that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Just had one clarification. Is there a date by which that decision has to be made?
Help me start with a date. January 1st?
No,
You know, like,
too soon.
Into the school.
too soon?
That's too soon.
First day of the budget.
Yeah, that's the first day of the
Oh,
budget, take
okay.
it back.
I mean, any work would,
June 1st would be
Yeah.
6 months.
June
after the
1st.
budget starts.
June-
Yeah,
I think
that's-
June 1st, people should know what they'll be able to do. I think
I would
that's
amend my
doable.
motion to say June 1, 2019.
All right.
second.
So we'll do these one by one, if you have other things you want to. Any other discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Thank you. Any other items in this budget you'd like to discuss? Yes.
I just have two or three. I just basically went through and I just saw big changes in numbers. And the first one I saw was street and alley crack filling. It's not that big a jump, I guess. Let's see, and that's on page 101 on mine, and it's line 410 005320280. Is that under public works? Is that what it is?
So that's our scrub ceiling stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just we're just budgeting a little bit more for that. We plan on just doing more of that next year.
That is the recommendation, yes.
Okay.
But roads are always something we have to keep up.
Oh, yeah, I'm just, and
So it
this
went
is
from
like,
like 90 something to 120, is that right?
Yep.
Or something?
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw that too. Look at, I even had that number in my head.
nice.
I know, because I thought the same thing, because I've been on the committee sometimes talking about that, and I understand like that it's good to do it, but I saw that too, and I was like, wow, it's a
No, I'm
jump,
not-
it's a jump, and
I'm not disagreeing with it, just like I said, I'm just looking at changes, like big changes in numbers. And I just love to have a little bit more information, so I'm not saying yes or no, just I'm curious about it, like what our plan is for next year.
and I was assuming that we looked at the roads that we were looking at, and they were maybe bigger projects, because last year we did, which roads did we do last year?
We just did
8th and,
Hillside and just below 12. Woodland. Those three, I think we spent, that was about 90,000-ish. The actual contractor was about 80. We used more of it to do a better job of getting it prepared, doing cutouts, smoothing it out. So those three roads, that was around 80,000.
Jeremy, yes.
So, and then the next, just a couple lines below that is street signs and markings. What will we be doing with that $27,000?
So I believe that's replacing.
That's explained, it was explained in the first draft of your first budget memo. The 2,700, that is for this intersection right here with the,
We moved the crosswalk.
correct.
Yeah, so we are shifting this crosswalk in Washington down so we have better visibility for people that are crossing it. And in order to do that, we need to fill in the current curb and cut in the new curb. And we just didn't have that last year to do.
Cool. And you said 2,700?
That's also adding in the 15,000 and the 10,000 for the school sidewalks, which we just discussed.
Ah, gotcha. Cool. Got far out. And I'm just gonna scroll down a little.
are we starting at page 1, or you just kind of, you're just going
He's
through?
picking.
He's picking.
Yeah, is that all right?
It's
Yes.
fine.
Anything else?
Thanks, Jen.
No, because I have some, so I would follow you, but if not, I'll
Yes.
just do mine later. Because we'll be going
Yes.
back and forth.
That's what I had. Cool. Thank you very much.
Jen, you wanted to do comments?
So on page 1, the lease agreement that we had in 2017 was like 10,000, and then it went to 100 and 100. So I guess I just didn't know like what that,
Where are
why
you?
that changed so much. It's on page 1 of the budget under intergovernmental revenues.
Okay, that $10,000, if you may recall, we entered into a lease agreement with the owners of the event center and hotel.
Oh, yeah.
For that property before we sold it to them.
Okay.
So it was a one-time deal.
One-time deal.
And okay. Go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. I noted that we are increasing our attorney fees.
Worth every cent.
Worth every cent. So, all good. I remembered why we're doing that.
Yes.
The publication fees for the newspaper, I understand, like we've decreased that a little bit, but man, I know that everything we have to do, we have to publicize $11,000 for putting all of our publication fees and newspaper advertisement. I'm just noting things that I just feel like in this day and age, there's any other way we can do that, but I'm sure we can't, but I'll just.
Speak to the legislature.
I will.
With that, that's required by
It's a
statute.
Requirement, and
Yeah.
there's no looking at other ways with this day and age with technology.
Newspaper and local circulation.
I believe that has been brought up in the legislature, but nothing has happened.
Drives me wild. Okay, custodial salary has been cut in half the past, like 2018 budget and 2019 budget.
What number are
It's
you, where are
on
you?
page 13 under City Hall. And maybe sometimes, Scott, you program that in other places, so I was just wondering.
No, the budget has not been cut.
So we're just doing it something.
Allocated.
You're looking at what actual was and what the budget is. You have to keep in mind, public works staff are allocated across
Bunch of different
a bunch of
stuff.
different areas, and I do the best average
know.
that I can, and I don't adjust that unless I really have good reason to.
Okay.
We're not cutting anyone's salary. It's just they still
No,
on staff.
I thought
They're
maybe
just-
we just found like, I don't know if Dan started like doing some, I was like, wow, we really cut down on our custodial.
I made no changes to any
Anything.
allocations
Okay.
of the.
If you'd like to add that to Dan's
No,
job
I don't.
description.
I was just wondering if we found like a big savings somehow to like clean differently or something. I thought, wow. Let's see. Oh, the only other question I had was on tree, woods, leaves and brush, and then I saw that
Page.
it's, sorry, jeez, number 16.
Thank you.
Woods, leaves, weed, leaves, and brush. And then again, we have it under tree control. I've gotten quite a bit of comments in terms of looking at our, along our boulevards and stuff. We have a lot of tree maintenance, and I know that we've talked about this in the past. And so, can you help me determine, is that our full amount that we have for allocation of tree contract where we do like urban forestry? There's another urban forestry piece.
One is intended for removals and trimmings and stump removals, and the other is for plantings.
And there are those plantings. So a total, just so I understand, it's the 4,800 plus like the $12,000 or something on the other
It's 5,000.
5,000? Okay.
Is there something you'd like
We
to?
feel like that's keeping up with what we need to, I've just gotten a lot of folks have been asking about like tree maintenance, for example. We haven't done a lot of, maybe we do and people don't see it. I know we're
Yeah,
working on it.
we're
I guess my
just
question
started.
is, do we have the funds to do the kind of urban maintenance and tree maintenance that we've been talking about maybe doing more of?
My response is, I don't believe that we have the funds. I don't believe there's a lot of areas where the budget is adequate.
Okay.
But I don't have a
Have a-
choice.
Choice.
I mean, some of the maintenance that we're doing in-house is just salary dollars for it.
Yeah.
Like we're doing in Washington, and we're gonna have I'm just starting to get that kind of thought process in them, and that's what we're gonna start looking at is maintenance on the parking lanes, the alleys, so vehicles and equipment can pass through.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my recommendation is like if we do have, sometimes we find extra money throughout the year, we have savings. And I would say if we can, because just like an investment in our streets, an investment in the trees and things like that, it goes a long way. And I feel like we've been talking about how we're going to do that a little bit better, but we're not. And so I see a lot of like big trees, big limbs, need trimming. Understood it's a big project, but
If only there was a federal agency based in our community
right.
that could help us with that.
Maybe it's something that the Parks and Rec Committee could look into, but we don't have any liability and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of urban forestry, like, I just don't, I think that we've talked about it for a while. And instead what happens is we just come in and we have to cut a bunch of trees down in a big project, and plantings are doing that systematically a little bit better over time. All I'm saying. So that's all I found.
Anyone else? Aaron, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention we had at the finance committee meeting, we did talk a little bit about the fact that we have not had a director of public works, and some people have been stepping in to take on that role. Scott, is that reflected in the budget? Any sort of, I don't know what we would do as far as increasing the salary in the interim?
That would not be reflected in this budget.
Okay.
That is a topic we have that on that agenda. That issue, it would be my anticipation that I think our goal is that we would have a new public works director at around the beginning of the year.
Those funds would come, you're thinking of, I believe, would come out of 2018 budget,
Okay.
not 2019 budget.
Okay.
Because we're not paying a public works director right now.
Sure. Okay. And I just want to, share my appreciation for the work, the extra work that people are taking on in the interim.
Any other comments about the budget? No comments about the budget?
I move that we approve are we still considering it a draft or do we, or proposed, or do we consider it now final based on our discussion?
It's not final.
Okay, proposed then. I move approval of the proposed 2019 general fund, debt service and capital budget.
As presented by the Personnel Finance Committee?
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Jeremy, you?
I guess just clarification, we're not approving the budget at this
No.
time, we're approving it to be published.
Published and,
Okay.
yeah, and then it'll be time for public comment for the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to amend the motion?
Scott, did you want to say
Just-
something?
No, I'm fine with the motion. Just
Okay.
know that there's a couple things that may come in that will require a budget. I did get highway aids this week. I'm only around $600 short from what is in here. We fared better than most communities on that because we have been putting more into our streets. A lot of other communities have received significant cuts in that because there was only a one-time allocation for this year, but that does not carry over to next year. So there will be a couple adjustments. Other than that, I'm fine with the motion.
So next meeting, there'll be time for the public to comment, and at that time, you make any final changes.
The next meeting, we do approve the levy formally. So that would be the big action that would occur in November. So anything any capital items, debt service, and the levy for the operating budget all kind of get combined in that. So once the levy is set, because we start working on the tax bills before the December meeting, so.
So any other comments or questions? Yes, Jeremy.
So if any of our people here in Washburn or anywhere wanted to take a look at this document, where would you recommend they look for it?
It's online.
Right
the
on our
website,
website?
And we have it here in City Hall.
Oh, great. Cool.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. Next, discussion and action on 2019 fee schedule. You have that information in your packet.
All right.
I know.
It looks like the main increases are at the campground and the premium sites. Those are at West End and Memorial or only at West End?
Eventually, this is something I brought up, noticing the draws on our park fund, trying to build our park fund back up.
Right.
And our comments by our campground attendants that these sites along the lakeshore are the most sought after and almost always full. So I thought, well, you pay more for a really good seat at a concert or a good seat on an airplane. Why not at our campgrounds?
Yeah, it's reasonable. I'm just
So
asking
the
if it's
event,
at both parks
okay,
or
I'm
what.
just doing that prelude. So the idea is eventually I would like to see both parks. But, yes, Scott,
Go ahead.
that's my hope, would be both parks eventually. But it was to be phased in as we can. Right now, I'm asking for you to approve the concept of this
Mhm,
proposal.
mhm.
So Scott,
We bantered a little bit on this concept. And it has been discussed in the past, I know that. If you approve this concept, I believe that Memorial Park would be the one that we would test it on with lakefront sites and so forth, and we'd have to designate which particular ones. The concern that we have to address is we are aware at both parks there is a need to improve the quality of some of the sites. There's a lot of things that need to be done. We have a lot of drainage issues that we've certainly had to deal. We've noticed this year at West End. We have a lot of sites that are full of water. So that's stuff that would have to be fixed before those sites would be done.
Consider premium.
Correct. And there's a couple issues we'd probably have to deal with at Memorial too, but that's most likely where we would start. I know that the attendants did bring up a concern because they are in high demand, just kind of keeping track of that because people will be at one campground site. Then if one of the premium sites opens up, they move. And so we just have to work out some ways to track that so that doesn't become confusing and an issue. So there's a little bit of
And if it was at Memorial Park, it would be on the side that has all, I consider it the more rustic side where it's often tents.
mostly
That's the
at
side
this.
That has the lake views.
At the time, I think we got to take a good look at that. I can't say for certain.
Okay.
And I think that when we come up with that, we'll have to designate those particular locations.
At our last Parks and, our committee meeting, we, I think you came and so did, Don came, and they basically have really taken great numbers in terms of, and showed percentages pretty specifically which sites are getting used.
High
a lot.
demand.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have pretty good data to show which sites are getting used. I think 35. So what you're asking us to do is approve the concept. So what you have in yellow here is just something that you're working on. I looked up some other numbers. The town of Russell, they have some. I was thinking is anybody else kind of doing this premium site thing with Richard's kind of concept? So, I mean, people definitely charge more for utilities, so town of Russell is $30 for electrical, $20 for tent sites. The one up in Bayfield, I never pronounced that right. Dalrymple, is that what?
Dalrymple.
Yeah. So that one's 28 and then 20. And then the Park Service or the Big Bay State Park is 30 for their sites. So 35 is a little bit higher than other campsites in this area, but maybe they don't have the premium views. It was noted online when I read the comments that there was a couple comments on the one in Bayfield that said there's so many trees in the way they can't see the lake anymore. So, but just something to think about, that we would definitely be a little bit above some of our other surrounding areas.
in
Just a bit of
those sites,
information. Huh?
in those particular sites,
In those particular sites. Yep.
not all our sites.
Nope. Just those sites.
Any other comments or questions on the fee schedule?
Just,
Yes, Jeremy.
just a little background about the increase of the deposit when the Blacktop Road is open. What's been happening? This has been an issue. What have the issues been?
I'm sorry.
Miscellaneous fees,
Oh,
water.
yeah,
and sewer
under,
connection.
yes, thank you. So under
Oh.
miscellaneous fees, water and sewer connection fees, increased deposit when Blacktop Road is open. This has been an issue, and I'm just curious what some of the issues have been.
Sure. When we have a new water and sewer connection that does require the street to be opened up, particularly if it's a blacktop road, our current deposit rate is $700. And we have found through a few examples that it simply has not been adequate to cover the costs of the road restoration. So sometimes we're billing, or back billing, or once the work is done to try to get that recouped. So it takes extra time and effort, and that rate has not changed in probably 15 plus years.
Thanks.
And I know this is a little, it's only 75 cents, but going from a quarter to 75 cents, have we talked to our campground folks about that increase and everybody's okay with that? Because it's kind of like, we're known for this. Hey, we're known for cheap showers, just to let you know.
I know.
I mean, people come here. We have a lot of people. Oh, yeah, we are known for our cheap quarter showers. And I mean, in terms of like people coming to use our campgrounds and different things like that, I mean, is it worth the 50 cents? I'm sure it is, but I guess I was just wondering, Dan, did we talk to anybody about that? I know it's just, but it's like, it's kind of the concept of.
I don't recall if I have had an in-depth conversation on that particular.
And we would just increase the little slot.
I still have to investigate that.
Because that might, yeah.
Yeah, I have to. I believe we can, but I have, it's on my.
You can vacuum out your car for 75 cents. You can take a shower for 75 cents.
I'm speculating that the cost of hot water
Oh, yeah.
for those showers. And when I started coming up here in 1977, it was 25 cents.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how long before that it had been 25 cents.
I'm just telling you, it's one of our claim to fames.
Yes.
Changing one of our claim to fames.
Really?
I'm okay with it. Oh, yeah. People
Take it off
that
the brochure.
recreate and come here,
Yeah.
people like our quarter
You come here
showers.
for 25 cents.
No, I'm just saying, like, people are always like, hey,
Drive
you can
from
take a
quarter to-
shower in Washburn for a quarter. I'm telling you.
Okay. Any other comments on the fee schedule?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I spaced this one. I've been talking about, speaking of sidewalks, after we put this out, we had a discussion about, and we learned some things as we change things around in Public Works. The city has been, as a part of an effort to encourage people to keep their sidewalks maintained. When someone wants to replace sidewalks on their own, and surprisingly, we had a couple just this past month, it's been the city's practice actually to remove the sidewalk for them and to provide sand for before they place the new sidewalk. So that is something that the city has been doing. We're suggesting, we've never charged a sidewalk fee. So the question was posed is if the city should have a sidewalk fee of some $25 as part of the permit when those services are requested.
So you're suggesting there's, for example, a $25 fee so that the city Public Works would remove the old sidewalk and provide sand?
We currently do that now for free.
Right. So you're still going to do it, but now it'll be $25.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good.
Seems like a bargain to me.
I think that's a pretty good bargain.
Right there with
I think
the
if we want to
showers.
provide incentive for people to replace their sidewalks, I don't think anybody would balk at $25 administrative costs and do that. So I would be
In favor of adding that?
very much in favor of adding that. I think that that's just fine.
Is there a second to adding that?
Second.
Any other discussion? Yes, Jeremy.
Well, if we want to encourage people to put in sidewalks, wouldn't we charge nothing?
That was my thought.
Well,
It's not an incentive to pay for something that they wouldn't have later or, earlier.
well, the fact that we actually remove it for them and provide sand is not part of the deal. I don't think that's known for our citizens that we do that. And I think that if we actually want it done, we could maybe promote that a little bit more because more people might be willing to do that. So I guess I'm not saying it's providing, I'm just saying like that's a pretty good thing versus, I thought Scott was going to say that we're no longer going to do that is what I thought he was going to say, because I'm sure the time, the hauling away and the sand in general is.
It saves some money on the contractor charge, because I would have imagined
It saves a
you would
lot.
pay the contractor to remove the sidewalk and bring the person who's replacing your sidewalk. So I think for $25, it's still a huge bargain.
Yes, Karen.
And was it, in fact, just the way things were being done versus the council saying by resolution, we
Right.
don't want you to charge?
I don't,
doubt
it's
that.
on us removing the sidewalks and the sand. It's actually on our permit form.
So it's just,
When it got there, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't recall, and Mary, she doesn't recall, so that's a good 15 years of experience.
so it was just kind of the way things were
way we-
without
Right.
really assessing, how much is this really costing the city to do this kind of work? I think $25 is saying to our citizens, we'll help you out. We need to at least cover some of our costs. And, we're glad you're doing your sidewalks. But I don't think $25 is going to prevent people from wanting to put in sidewalks. And I think our people we need to have reimbursement, or at least, it doesn't reimburse the cost. It can't, not $25.
Pretty sure if people come in and they see that on the permit, they're pretty jacked. They're like, oh, really? All right. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on this part of the $25 fee? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Anything, other questions on the fee schedule?
I move approval of the proposed 2019 fee schedule with the addition of the sidewalk removal and sand, the removal of sidewalks and sands fee of $25 when a resident wants to put in their own sidewalk.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, discussion and action on 2019 stormwater utility budget and 2019 harbor commission budget. Any questions or comments on these items? Well, do I hear a motion to approve the 2019 stormwater utility budget and the 2019 harbor commission budget?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Questions, comments? Yes,
I did have a question in this memo, Scott, in the first paragraph. Revenues have been slightly adjusted. And then it says miscellaneous revenues account for the amount taken out of the fund balance to pay off debt. This will drain the fund balance to less than 10,000. But then it says no rate increase is proposed for 2019 as the fund balance is stable and the city is able to cover up. I'm a little confused by what are you saying here? Do we have, it's not, the fund balance is drained or the fund balance is okay, or is it two different fund balances? I was just a little confused. And maybe I'm just confused.
I will admit that you caught me recycling an old memo and not proofreading it adequately.
Ah, okay.
I'm
an English teacher.
I wouldn't say the fund balance has been stable, but we will drain it this year to pay off debt.
Okay,
But the projection would show that it will rebound in the
Okay.
next several years.
okay. All right. So it will be drained to less than 10,000, but there's no rate increase because the fund balance will rebuild.
Correct.
Okay,
We have been adequately generating what we need to pay the bills.
Okay.
We don't have extra money to do more stormwater projects,
right.
but we're maintaining our road. And once the existing projects debts are paid off, then we would be in a position to start tackling additional projects. That's
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, you had a question?
On the sewer water utility budget, the miscellaneous income, the $110,000, where's that coming from, or what is that?
that is the fund balance. That's basically the stormwater utilities savings account. So that's money that has been built up over the years that basically was unspent. So we're gonna spend that down to pay off debt.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve these?
We have that.
Oh, we have the motion, sorry. Any other? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes, thank you. Next is the discussion and action on ordinance 18-005, updating the regulation for the keeping of chickens to be consistent with the city's revised ordinance code.
And there's.
So we did the Harbor Commission and the,
We did, yes.
all as one, huh?
Oh, sorry. Did you want to review the Harbor Commission?
It's a question if we did both of them at the same
Well,
time.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll step back.
Did we?
Is there a motion to approve the Harbor Commission?
It might have been part of the motion.
It was assumed, I don't think it was.
Is, okay, now it is specifically moved and seconded. Any
second.
questions on the Harbor Commission budget? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you. Now we're talking about chickens.
Okay.
For the chickens, there is a transposed east and west for that section A.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Should be the portions of the C1 cottage districts located to the west of the intersection of Bayfield Street and 11th Ave West, and to the east of the intersection of Bayfield Street and East Superior Avenue.
You're on the ordinance itself?
Yes, so that first section, 7126A.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-005?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Any changes you'd like to make to this ordinance? Other than what was mentioned by our city attorney?
So, just so that I'm. So now we've kind of, and Scott, in your memo, we've addressed what you put in your memo of, from a permit perspective, having that single boundary of 10th Avenue.
This was Dan.
Dan, sorry, Dan. Has that been, that's what we have now, right? We have,
I guess what threw me was the superior.
So I'll clarify that. I think when it was initially discussed, we only talked about the
Yeah.
commercial cottage that was on the west side of town and neglected to
Oh,
notice that the
okay,
Friends of the
gotcha.
Earth is also zoned cottage
Gotcha.
commercial.
Right, I understand.
So as it was initially discussed, just being west of 11th Ave, then you notice that
Okay.
one lot of cottage commercial but on the other end of town would have been excluded.
Gotcha. So on this side, is our boundary going to be 10th? Are we gonna have a boundary for the cottage commercial? Because that was the biggest discussion, was what part of the west side of the cottage commercial would allow chickens, is what I recall as being the biggest. So does the ordinance specify which section of that cottage commercial it breaks?
Yes, west of
Okay.
11th Ave
Okay,
west.
then, all right.
So that's the break line,
So
11th Ave west.
It should read, you said cottage commercial districts located to the east of the intersection, or you're saying to the west of the intersection?
West of the intersection of Bayfield Street
Yep.
and 11th Ave West, and to the east of the intersection of Bayfield Street, East Superior
Yeah,
Ave.
so that gives it
Okay.
a little square. So we're getting rid of that small section by, Okay, yes, I'm clear now. Yep.
Mary, I remember you had a lot of comments last time about this. Is this a?
Yeah, this one, this is
Okay,
grand.
just
Thank
want to
you.
make sure.
Yep.
Karen, did you want to say something? Nope. Linda,
I'm good.
okay,
Now that we got the directions.
okay, we know what's
Straight.
going
I
on.
think so, yeah.
So again, why are we not doing it in all of C1?
Because
That was
some of it's next to businesses that serve food or have some other conflict possibly with chickens.
Such as,
The, I think, when was the was it Checkers? Checkers and other, development that could be in those in the cottage commercial area. You're placing it where there's no other non-residential in the cottage commercial, I think was the goal, right?
Jeremy, did you want to suggest a change?
I'm the only one that seems to care. It's fine with me. It's all in C1. If nobody else is bothered by that, then I'll just vote against it and that's fine.
That is your right.
Sure. Oh, I
If
think
you have an argument for
you're
other
comfortable with
things,
all
we'd
of
like to hear
C1.
it.
Yeah, I guess I'll make an amendment to the proposal that we scratch the extra verbiage and just include it in all of C1.
Is there a second to this amendment? Is there a second? Hearing none, I guess that request for amendment dies. Any other questions and comments you'd like to make about this ordinance?
Look forward to the next person that's living in that area coming to us to change it once again.
That could happen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
Passes. Thank you. Next, we have the discussion action ordinance 18-001, providing for an extension of premises for alcohol licenses during special events. This is at our last meeting, but we lacked our esteemed attorney.
So my question is this the complete, this is the previous resolution
Correct.
and there's been no change in it.
No, what's included is everything that was there last time in a short little paragraph that I added, just because I wasn't here, Max wasn't here, so nothing was done with it
Right.
at all. So,
I would like to suggest something I thought of when I was reading it over this afternoon. Under the approval of application, that there be some sort of appeal process. So theoretically, the authority lies, right now, if this passes, authority lies entirely with the city clerk or a designee. But there could be instances where this person might not feel they were well served and request an appeal to the city council. Now, that would have to be, they'd have to have their application in a timely fashion to get on the agenda before the event. But it's just something to consider.
it makes sense to me. Richard and I discussed this, and like you said, if I'm approving it and I have a problem with a bar, and I say, as he mentioned, you did not serve me well, so I'm not approving it, and that was my reasoning, and they felt that was unlawful, they could, then I agree with having an appeal.
I know it's kind of far-fetched, but just to have that safety valve in there for someone if they felt they were discriminated against, not that Dan or Scott would.
No, but there could be a problem bar too.
Could be a
I mean,
problem.
And they'll argue
Yep.
they're not a problem, but the police would say different, or neighbors would say different. So yeah, it's not a bad.
So did we get through all of the little pieces, like the, requiring a fencing?
We have not.
Okay,
I'm just throwing that part out there.
okay, that's good. I was just wondering where we were at. I
We
couldn't
had talked
remember where-
about fencing
We talked about
before.
We
fencing.
talked about fencing, but it's
Okay.
not in this version.
Okay,
And
Just wanna-
this, where? I thought
Max's memo says it's not, I did not address several areas.
And marking the territory, the area off.
Could you tell me where you are?
That's helpful. Where is it?
As Karen said, I
Application.
don't think the intention is necessarily a actual put up chain link fence.
No, I
It's
said
more- yeah,
marking it off either
Yeah.
with a rope or
Yep,
tape
precisely.
or.
A tent, if you had if you had like a wedding outside and you had a tented area, that would be your designated area, just so you don't have people wandering everywhere, was the idea.
Well, this says running a fence or a barrier.
Yeah, and that can, again, be a rope, a string, anything that just somehow designates where your event outside of the premise is happening.
Where the boundaries are.
Yeah.
And, but where
So
do you see that?
In the requirement now, it just requires a specific description of the site where it's to be sought. It doesn't require actually fencing that off with a physical barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right,
do we
you're
want
right.
that added is what I'm asking.
Is that what you're proposing?
I don't care, really.
Personally, I would not like to see that, because if it's on their premises, it's on their premises.
Okay.
But if that's
So we don't
something
need
you.
to. I was just looking at Dan's
Yeah.
memo and wondering,
It's a common thing to have. I guess I'm not, either way, I suppose. It's just, I think most of these I've looked at, it is common to have some sort of description.
Right.
That way, also, if there's a discrepancy of what the property line is, and they wander onto someone else's, now you're opening talks.
Yeah, because we have, by providing a map describing the area for which the extension is sought. So I think that
that
think
map
that
will be enough.
qualifies it.
Suppose we could go back, if this doesn't work, if we have problems, we
Exactly.
can go back.
There's a map.
suppose, and
Most
say,
of these
we need to add
events, most of these events are in the outside parking area or lot area of the
Mhm.
business, like it next to Patsy's or
There's not a
next
lot
to
of
the-
area they could go.
next to
Yeah,
the
there
Harbor
is.
View, right?
I would say, speaking on behalf of Homecoming down the pike and other events that do happen on Bayfield Street, that some people think the designated area for open container, just say it wasn't, is the middle of the street or it's the sidewalk. And I say to you, a bar owner, I'm just saying some kind of barricade or the plastic snow fencing is no big deal, but it could be helpful for them. I mean, somebody's a minor right around that barricade drinking a beer, it could be argued that they got it, or they could say I just think a true visual is,
And a barrier does provide an entrance as well, again, if there's a minors and.
Then how do you,
My only counter with that is on Bayfield Street, we always relax the open container.
Mhm.
And so you can just walk down the street.
For that specific event.
For that specific event, yes.
But you were using that as your illustration.
because there will be some changes coming down the pike.
This would allow, I mean, people could, if they wanted to,
Wow.
put a barrier.
Sure.
We're just not requiring it.
Yeah, I mean, they can do it.
Yeah.
If we don't
Not
require it,
to
then they.
keep people from
Right,
trespassing
like, so
into
what we're
the
talking about
fence.
is like the protection of the business owners. A couple of comments were, but
Sure,
they can put that protection in place
Absolutely.
if they like, but it's not required of them.
Did you guys talk to Kenny about it at all?
It's been a while now. I couldn't give you good feedback on
Okay.
that conversation.
It was run by him and he said he would help and check out the sites, but not much more discussion. That's my understanding.
Mary, do you have changes you'd like to make?
No, whether it's a city barricade or the orange snow fencing, which is cheap. And again, it gives you an entrance to a spot, an exit to a spot, and it gives boundaries. And I think that would behoove a bar owner. I think it would aid Kenny or the police department in any tickets they might want to give for open container when streets are not open container. Just
But that's not being required in this.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, Jeremy.
Thanks. The golf course, they have a license, don't they?
Yes.
So under this, if there isn't in a contained area, could you potentially wander that whole golf course with an open container?
Do they do that now?
Yeah, so golf.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any strong feelings either way or another, and if it becomes a problem, whatever.
Dan and I discussed this and we thought exactly, if it becomes a problem, we can readdress this, that.
Okay.
I think it's fair.
What I'd like to see is it be fairly simple to begin with and see what works, because it is new to us.
And Max, would there be legal, do you see any legal issues on the city's part?
Not for the city, no, those issues would be for the bar owners and potential.
And there's nothing statewide. I only go back historically speaking when we used to do beer gardens down by the ballpark, and they had to be fenced at that time. I don't recall whether that was a state thing or off premise or a city.
But it wasn't associated with a bar. This
chamber
for a
did it.
venue, this is associated with a structure
Specific.
and the
Business.
land attached to that structure, correct?
Right.
Yes,
Mhm.
and under their existing
Yeah.
license to sell alcohol.
So it's not as though you take an event and move it
Mhm.
in a field somewhere.
That'd be a different ordinance.
Right, that's a different situation.
The only question that I had is, we had some suggestions for policy versus ordinance. Like, so for example, if you wanted, like if you, to notify neighbors, adjacent and stuff. I guess like, if somebody could explain to me, why would we have a policy versus putting it into the ordinance? Because one's easier to change than
That
the
would
other.
be my response.
Okay, I guess I was just wondering, because I was trying to think of all the different places that have the alcohol license. And if you have like adjacent, so that adjacent landowner one was the one that I was, out of this list, was thinking of the most, I guess.
I guess the
Because-
change in the ordinance, you have to send it to the codifier and go through. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's why I don't like, if you don't put specific dollar amounts, like if we were gonna charge for this in the fee schedule opposed to ordinance.
Gotcha.
'Cause-
Okay.
And in the application. So this is
Or
the
the-
ordinance, and then
yes.
when you put something in as policy,
That could
it's
go
in
in
the
the
application
There
that
could be a
you
guideline.
must show that you've got permission from your neighbors or something. It can be a statement in the application, but
Like
not
you
in
do
the
with the
ordinance.
chicken one, or is that in the ordinance? Can't remember. Well, anyways, when you do the chicken, don't you have
chickens
to know your
are
neighbors?
Mhm.
So you're suggesting you do want to have the agreement of the neighbors?
No,
So
I
if
was-
one neighbor says, no, you can't do it.
Well, I was just trying to, that was the only one that parked, that kind of piqued my interest in terms of when I was just trying to think of all the ones that had alcohol license and like the neighbors to that. Do we have like residential? But I don't think we have a lot of that
At night, you can hear things.
All over
All
town.
over.
all over
Yeah.
the place.
And like
I
Richard
could
said,
do
I
that.
think a lot of this is kind of,
Yeah,
if it becomes
an
an
issue.
issue, we can address it.
Yeah, if we all of a sudden have somebody that's applying for it, like 20 times a year, we might want
At least if
to put
it
a
gets,
time
like, yeah, we
restraint
could
on it.
do a limit if it gets out of hand.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't suspect it.
No, that sounds
will.
good.
Anything else you'd like to bring up?
Mm-mm.
I would like to comment on the items under G on.
Did we vote on it? Oh, you-
No, we're
you're
still-
on.
Still discussing.
Okay.
On premises sale, the, not allowing bottles, cans, or glass containers. And also the part where you must have a single-use service cups. So in that idea is if you, for example, bought a beer, you got a second beer, you have to throw away that plastic cup, get another plastic cup. That's what we're saying in this here. And I'm just saying, That's sort of an environmental disaster.
Yeah, I don't.
I think,
my
is that
opinion.
a sanitary issue though? Like, I mean, I know when you go to a salad bar in Wisconsin, you've
Right.
got to have a clean plate. Is that,
That's
Is that-
exactly what I brought up, but you could go to a bar and say, could you refill this glass?
right?
That you drank out of it, no one else drank out of it.
I don't know. I guess when I
Some
read that, I
people-
thought it was a sanitary law too.
Some people who've been to bars tell me that they've had their glass of beer refilled.
I've seen that practice.
Yeah.
So does that also mean if you buy a can of beer, you have to pour that can of beer into a cup?
Yes,
Yes.
that's what it means. That's exactly what it means.
I don't like it.
That's why I bring it up.
Nobody says.
I didn't like it either. That's why I brought it up. So that's two things there. So
Well, it says the chief of police may permit beverage containers other than single service cups.
and that's what I brought up. So what does the chief of police know?
do with
in regard-
that?
Yeah, what's he gonna, in his experience or her experience, know about this?
Do you have a suggestion of what
Yeah,
language you'd
cross
like
it all
to
off.
see?
Cross
So-
it all off.
So glass and cans and,
And we'll see how it goes.
okay.
Not even use it to.
I think this would be, if we, the way we have it currently, it'd be very hard to enforce all of that. And like all these other ones, as Richard said, if it becomes a problem, we can.
Yeah.
I think it's common for the plastic cup thing, but
This would be up to the license holder. If they want to serve in plastic cups, they can. Nothing to stop them, but they have the option.
But if you're having a fancy wedding reception, you probably do not want to serve the champagne
In
in
a
plastic cups.
and these are all on private property, so if there's glass
But you want it in a
issues,
flute,
it's
you know.
on theirs.
Right?
Right.
Because I have got to go. I've got
I'm
something
sorry.
going on at my house, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
We should-
Sorry.
Is there,
Any other-
has there been a motion made on this?
Not yet. We're still discussing it. So my idea here is to keep it as simple as possible and see what works. And this is an area that I saw, I didn't see how we could enforce it. And so, but it would be on our books. And I don't like ordinances on our books that we can't enforce.
So you're suggesting remove number 2 completely?
Or just G.
Or G.
G1 and 2.
Yep, G
Because number one
entirely.
is weird.
G entirely is what I'm suggesting.
Okay,
That's just my suggestion.
all right. No, thank you.
What was your other, you had another suggestion though, Richard?
That was, well, it was G1 and 2, and that was,
Okay. I'll make,
previously, my suggestion was for the appeals process. If that's what you're referring to.
that's, yeah. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 18-007 with the mayor's recommendations that he presented tonight.
What do we want the
G.
appeals process to be? To
Oh.
the city council,
City council.
which then has a full fact-finding hearing on it, or what would the,
I guess I don't know what that term, full fact.
for,
Uh-oh, legal term.
would it be a,
FBI.
the application, or the city council then just considers the application? Or would it be an opportunity for the applicant to bring in additional evidence or witnesses or other things?
What would you think would be the most simple?
Most simple, the city council just considers the application and
That's-
anything submitted.
That's
with
my
their
motion
initial
then.
application. Okay.
And the striking of G.
Well, don't we have an appeal process for something else?
Yes,
that we
several
use?
other, but there are different,
They're all
there are some
different?
due process appeals and there are some just
Okay.
kind of a second review appeal
Okay.
that would be much easier. Yes. And this is not a property right that requires a due process hearing.
Okay.
Under the law, so,
For simplicity's sake, I'd prefer that it not get to the level where they're hiring attorneys.
yeah,
We do.
No
for-
offense.
yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's easy then.
Okay. There's a motion by Jeremy. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'm having a good time.
So move, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Scott, do you want us to keep the budget, or are we just gonna get another one?
I know, that was easy.
Should've been easy.
I know.